A very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us on Health and Wellness. My name is Zaitun Ali, and on today's episode, we want to talk about fibroids. And joining me on set, I have Vivian Bwana. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
She is the survivor of this condition, and also Fatma Mohammed, a wellness coach and a founder of the Wellness KE. Karibu.
Thank you so much.
You're also a survivor of fibroids.
Yes.
And they're going to explain more about their experiences, what it was like for them, how they diagnosed it, and the treatment process. So you better stay tuned on this very episode. Welcome to the show. Karibuni.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Asante sana. I have to say Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year. Tumeanza mwaka tena.
Yes. We drag it until February. Happy New Year.
Have you put down your Christmas tree?
You know what? I don't usually do the Christmas tree or anything. What I do is I just look forward to the year. Whenever the year starts, I tell myself I'll learn something new. This year I want to learn how to play the guitar, so I hope it happens.
Wow.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And as you're talking about fibroids, we all know they are non-cancerous growths that actually occur in the uterus of the woman, especially during their childbearing years. So let me just start with your experience. What was it like?
First of all, I didn't even know I had them. The diagnosis came by accident. One day I was just bleeding profusely, and I got really weak and collapsed, and I had a friend with me, and they took me to hospital, and then they did an ultrasound, and the person who was doing the ultrasound just said, "Oh, you're bleeding because of the fibroids." And I was like, "The what?" "The fibroids." And that's how I found out that I had fibroids, and they were quite big, and from that moment on, I was experiencing a lot of painful periods and a lot of bleeding, and sometimes the bleeding would come with a lot of clots. But then I was advised at that time the best would be to just remove the whole uterus plus the fibroids, because they were quite a number and they were really, really large. I think the largest at the time was like 12 centimeters by 10, thereabout. So they were quite large, and I was advised just get rid of the whole uterus. Of course, I wasn't ready for that, so I waited a couple of months.
How old were you first and foremost?
Wow, I was 28.
Okay.
Yes, I was 28.
Of childbearing at that point?
Yes, childbearing. Because after that is when I got married, got pregnant. It was a very short period actually after that, and it was very intentional because I felt like I needed to get a child immediately, because who knows, I may have a uterus or not. And after getting pregnant, I think I didn't know what to expect. I just assumed it would be well and it would be okay. But by the time I was 4 months, I think 3-4 months, I started experiencing a lot of pain and contraction pains, and it wasn't really making sense. So I went to hospital, and I was told what was happening was that the baby and the fibroids were competing for the blood, and so the fibroids were dying off from the inside, a condition called red degeneration. So basically what was happening is I was experiencing contraction, kind of like labor pains, and I experienced that from month 4 all the way till giving birth. It was crazy because even when I was having labor, I didn't know I was having labor because I was so used to having so much pain. And so I remember the labor started, now I'm aware that the labor started at around 8 p.m. at night. And, I just kept on going to the toilet, coming back, and I'm like, I don't understand. Today the pain it was a little bit different because it felt like it was coming after some time and after some time. So I was like, this is probably how contractions work. And so I downloaded an app and started counting, and then by morning I was like, it's every 20 minutes. So I was like, so probably I'm in labor, let's just go and get it checked. So I did go to hospital, and that's when I realized I was actually experiencing labor. I was so excited. I did manage to push the baby out, which was something I had been told cannot happen because of the fibroids I had. I was told it was dangerous because the fibroids kind of do not give the right signals of the contraction of the uterus. And so I had to have the contractions monitored throughout the whole labor period. And so I did finally give birth, but then that was only half of the experience, because after giving birth, 3 months after giving birth, my periods came back. And from the day they came back, I bled every single day. every single day for about,
They
you know,
even take a year.
yes.
Yours came
After 3 months, because I gave birth in August. November my periods were back, and then by the time I was starting December, it bled every day until finally when I had the surgery in July of 2019. Yes, 2019. But then at that time, when all this was happening, I didn't know exactly that the fibroids were the cause. And then what's interesting, because now I started receiving the periods, I was on the pill, to try and, not get pregnant. So it felt like the pills were controlling kind of the symptoms of the fibroids.
Because of the hormones.
Yes, exactly. And so when that period when they say stop taking the pills for 7 days, that was horrible. Like it was horrible. I would bleed really, really bad, and it would come up with huge clots. And so the time I decided, I felt like now I want to look for another baby is when I stopped the pills completely, and then it was just a downward trajectory. I lost a lot of blood to the point where my blood levels were 4. And for a woman between 12 and 14 is the healthy one. Yeah, and by that time now it was bad. I was white. I couldn't.
White in color, like
white, genuinely white in color. Like my eyes were white, my lips were white, my hands were white, my feet were white. Everything was white, And me, I just thought I was just tired, and my heart was always beating if I could do something so small, which were symptoms of anemia at the time. Yeah. So by the time I was going to hospital is when I was told I needed blood transfusion, but then I was told it's not a viable plan because blood is coming out, so it doesn't make sense putting in water in a bucket that's broken in and out. And so then I was advised the best would be to have the uterus removed again. And again, I wasn't ready for that, so I did take some time, and I did seek a second opinion, which that is when I found out that I could actually have the fibroids removed and still have the uterus intact. So I did go for that option.
So before even we come to that, the surgery, perhaps was your story the same as hers? Would you give us your experience, that one?
Yeah, okay. For me, I was diagnosed at 20. So when I was turning 21 is when I found out I had fibroids. And the sad thing is that when I went into hospital, I had no symptoms. I just felt something hard in my stomach when I would press my stomach. Yeah. So I went into hospital, and then they did an ultrasound. And then when they did the ultrasound, that's when they told me that I have fibroids. And then the doctor asked me a couple of questions like, how is your period? Is it normal? Is it painful? What's your flow like? And all that. And I said, everything is just normal. And so because of that, he was like, okay, so these are asymptomatic. You have no symptoms. So basically what you need to do is just go on, live your life, and you'll be fine. Well, majority of the times they disappear, So I trusted, of course, because I went in to find out what I can do about it. But unfortunately for me, going back to living my life, of course, working, poor diet, just life in general, that's when now the fibroids increased. So I went from one tiny fibroid to now the 23 fibroids being removed. But now that taught me a lot. It taught me that fibroids will always grow if you have your period. If you still are in your childbearing years and you have fibroids, the chances of them growing are very high because fibroids grow because of high estrogen. And estrogen is what gives us our menstruation, our period. Yeah. So as long as you have estrogen and you have it higher, then you are actually going to end up having fibroids grow, increase in size and number. Unless you're going to go through menopause, that's when they start shrinking, because now the estrogen is a completely different type of estrogen, and also it's less, less amounts. And so the process was really draining because my pain was unbearable. My period was very heavy, and the pain was also, it was really serious pain. If I have my period, I have pain, then I faint. I got used to fainting, which is so sad because like when I hear you talk about how you've gotten used to contraction, as women, we just get used to these things. And you're like, okay, so this is a normal thing I go through, and then you actually get to a place where now you work around the pain, you work around it, right? But it is not normal. It is not normal. Even for women, I tell them, like, if you have your period, it is not normal that your period is painful. It should not be. It is not normal that you don't wait a good 28 days to get your next period. If it's much sooner, that's not normal. It means your estrogen is very high. It's also not normal that you have fibroids in your uterus. That means that estrogen is very high. And if estrogen is high, there are a couple of things you can do to make sure that you lower the estrogen for it to be at the right, level, and also for you to make sure that, in our case, our fibroids do not reoccur. Because every month you won't keep having babies.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a pregnancy every month, but you have to still get to a place where you control it before you get to menopause.
And for you, Fatma, you were able to feel it?
I was able to feel it, yeah. It was very tiny. So the thing about fibroids is they tell you the size as per, objects. They can tell you this is the size of a pea, a fibroid the size of a pea, fibroid the size of a melon, fibroid the size of a grapefruit. So for me, it was one tiny fibroid the size of a pea. And so the thing is, when I would press, I would actually feel. And something important for every woman to know is that, there are different kinds of fibroids, right? So it could be subserosal fibroid, which is located outward of the uterus. And that is the type of fibroid that you see now, your stomach swells, and then you can almost feel it. And then there are the fibroids that are submucosal, meaning they are within the inner cavity of the uterus. So because of that, you find this is the type of fibroid that no matter how tiny it is, the symptoms are so severe, and fertility is also impacted. So chances are you find if your fibroid is maybe growing outward, you don't struggle with your fertility. It's just that there's a competition between the fibroid and the fetus, because fibroids feed on blood circulation, like they need proper blood circulation for them to keep growing, and so the baby as well. And so that's why fibroids and fertility now can be impacted.
For those who actually lose their pregnancy, what is normally the issue?
Majority of the times it's the fact that you find like the fetus is struggling. It's in competition with the fibroid, because as I mentioned, the fibroid also needs constant blood supply for it to keep growing. So because of that, you find you lose the pregnancy because the fetus does not get enough proper blood supply, basically, right? And so you lose the baby. And also another thing is obstruction or the space, because the space where the fibroids are located could be where now the fetus is supposed to grow and grow into a full-term pregnancy. So you find maybe the fibroid is placed right where the fetus is supposed to be. And so because of that and that obstruction, you might lose your pregnancy. And another important one is the hormonal imbalance, because majority of the times you find either you cannot become pregnant, or when you do, you lose the pregnancy. And the imbalance comes about because now fibroids are brought about because of high levels of estrogen. And so now you find that the estrogen is way too high. And so because estrogen and progesterone have like a seesaw relationship, like when one goes up, one is lower. So if your estrogen goes up, then your progesterone automatically is much lower. And progesterone is known as the pregnancy hormone. It's the hormone that gives you full-term pregnancy. So you find majority of the times if it's a miscarriage, they'll start by checking your progesterone. Chances are it's much lower because maybe your endometrial lining is too thin, you're not able to implant well, or you lose the fetus because of the fibroids.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Vivian, you were talking about the treatment processes that your doctor actually told you about. And which one did you end up settling?
The first option I was aware of is the fact that I was told there are drugs that you can take to help shrink the fibroids and then have the surgical procedure. But then I was told my fibroids were the size of being removed surgically. But then the advice at that time was, because they were quite a number and they were quite huge, like she just mentioned, having a child grow in the uterus with those fibroids is not healthy, because I also had the danger of having a small baby, a very small baby, because they don't have enough space to grow. And so I was advised the best would be just to remove the whole uterus, which is called hysterectomy. And then the other option now is myomectomy, where now I was supposed to have a surgery and just remove the fibroids themselves and then have the uterus stitched back up, take some time and heal, and hopefully they don't come back, because it's not also a surety that, once you have the surgery done, you will never have fibroids again. Like she mentioned, there's the hormonal aspect, there's life, there's a lot of things that play. There's also genetics also that play a part. And so it is not 100% that, they'll not recur, but it's one of the options that is available. So the options that I was presented with are, the hysterectomy or the myomectomy. hysterectomy to remove the whole uterus, myomectomy to have the fibroids only removed. And so I settled for that after, of course, having given birth. That's the option I chose. Yeah.
Vivian, like you've mentioned, some of the things that causes these fibroids is genetic
predisposition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So perhaps you can expound more about that, Fatma.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fibroids will affect about 80% of every woman, whether they are black, white, Asian, whatever. Which is sad. Like it means that in life, a woman has an 80% chance of getting fibroids. You might know, you might not know, because there are symptomatic fibroids and then there are asymptomatic fibroids. And then, so because of that, that means just statistically, we are more likely to develop fibroids. But another thing that Vivian has mentioned, which is important, is genetics.
Yeah.
If you have a family member, especially on your maternal side, who has had fibroids, whether it's your mom, your aunties, your grandma, then you stand a higher chance of developing fibroids. And also women who are of African descent and also just black women who are more likely to develop fibroids. And when you go deeper, you understand it's about stress and trauma and just living in a state of fight or flight. Kungangana. Strong black woman, as you were saying before. It just also puts you more at risk of having fibroids, and also a poor diet, lifestyle, drinking a lot of alcohol, eating a lot of high salty foods, high sugary foods also puts you at risk. So a poor diet is major. And then the most important is hormonal imbalance. It's the fact that you get to a place where you get to have your period, and every month you have your period. That means that estrogen is needed for you to have your period. So it's almost like you are likely to be exposed to estrogen more because you still have your period. That's one of the factors, the fact that your estrogen levels are very high. And then another one is known as early menarche, meaning you got your period very early. If you can remember, if you can remember, like for me, I remember I was the first one in my class to have my period. So when I talk to any client who has come to me with fibroids, when I ask them that question, they say, I was the first one, I was 12.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, right now we have women who are much younger. We have girls who are at 9 and they have their period. And when you track, like you find that they start developing these issues very early. So you find that they start, when they get their period, it gets to be a little bit painful, it's uncomfortable, but then they go on with life and school and whatever until they get to the state of womanhood. That's when they realize, okay, maybe this is a problem I have and I keep having, and everyone knows so-and-so has this issue. When she has her period, maybe she's very tired, maybe she loses more blood and things like that. So early menarche is a big one, and also anyone who goes through early menarche, it means that you've had your period much earlier, so you've had more periods than any other woman. So because of that, you're more exposed to the estrogen longer. And it's the type of estrogen known as estradiol. So there are 3 kinds of estrogen, but when we are in our childbearing years, this type of estrogen is highest because it's what gives us our period, you know. So, and this is the type of estrogen that is also can develop the growth of cells and tumors. So even when you are in your childbearing years, you should also be careful about issues like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, because it's usually a pattern. It's like in your 20s and 30s, you struggle with fibroids. If you don't switch your lifestyle in your 50s, it's usually breast cancer. They're very, very late.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is right. Did any one of you get to know perhaps the cause of their fibroids? Did you manage to narrow it down to perhaps it's this?
For me, I honestly didn't. Though I know my mom had them, and so it was easy to assume that it is actually genetic. Yeah.
Same for me. I would say, because I saw that I have members of my family from my maternal side who have had fibroids, and the weird thing is that when we were young, I would see that they would just take this mitishamba and then they're gone. And then they're just fine. And so it's interesting that you say that, and you find most of us as women who have had fibroids, there's someone on your maternal side who has had them as well.
Okay. Talking about mitishamba, guys, I know you can say I have fruits over here. Today my hormones are telling me I'm hungry, I need to eat right now in the show. But anyway, we'll be coming back with more about how you can just use home-based remedies to treat perhaps fibroids. Fatma is the wellness coach, will be explaining this and more, and she'll also explain her treatment process after the break. So stay tuned. This is Health and Wellness. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Health and Wellness. My name is Aitun Ali. Every single Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on KTN Home. And the topic today has been fibroids. So at the first part of the show, I had Fatma Mohammed, who is still here, together with Vivian Bona. They're both survivors of fibroids. And Fatma is a wellness coach. Ametuandalia Fatma naona, and we're going to try out some home-based remedies just to treat fibroids in case yours are not too enlarged. What's the word to use?
Actually, anyone who has fibroids can be able to try the remedies.
Okay.
Because this is a process where you're balancing the estrogen levels and you're also trying your best to make sure that you shrink them naturally.
Okay, that's a good one. So you are getting tips on the best diet, especially if you've been suffering from this. So thank you, Fatma. Take it away.
Okay, so the first thing is we've talked about how fibroids are caused by high estrogen. So one of the best things you can do is to make sure every day you get to eat foods that can shrink them, and one of them is broccoli. Yeah, so broccoli is one of the best foods to help with shrinking fibroids, and cabbage, which surprisingly people don't necessarily think about it. I know. And also the myth is that women are told not to eat cabbage, which is such a big myth. It's because broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage contain something called indole-3-carbinol, which is meant to shrink tumors and to shrink fibroids. So if you have fibroids or you have had them and you're trying to make sure they don't grow back, make sure you eat more of these, right? So another food that's very healthy for you is avocados. So basically, an avocado in history is just known as the food for your womb because it is the shape of a womb, and it's also one of the best superfoods for your uterus. So if you have had fibroids or you want to avoid having fibroids, make sure that with your meal you can have an avocado with your meal, right?
But others also say it has a lot of fat. There's a time actually I was very expectant, and I went to a hotel. I ordered an avocado juice. I wait but hey madam, ukoshuta kukula hii sahi, and I'm like, why? The fats nini ona ushakuwa mkubwa mtoto. Because imagine, first and foremost, he was very opinionated. And I'm like, I know, right? I know. So I had even that mentality as well. So I was like, okay, so I'm sure atakuwa mkubwa sana.
Avocado is a healthy fat, and it is actually very important for you to eat avocados because, as I mentioned, it helps with hormone balance. Actually, for your body to produce hormones in the right amounts, you need healthy fats and you need protein. So if you avoid the two, you will always have an imbalance. So another one that's really, really good is cucumbers. Cucumbers are very important because they help you with getting rid of water retention. I remember, Vivian, you had mentioned that when you had fibroids, and same for me, you have a lot of bloating, stomach pain, and things like that. So this is going to help you a lot. If you can use this in a salad, that's okay. If you can make a green juice with it, that's okay. If you can blend a smoothie with a cucumber and a mango, that's okay. That's actually going to help you with the pain and the cramping when you have your period, and it's very important.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so something else that's really important is also green tea. So this is a special kind of green tea. It's known as matcha green tea. It's not the normal kind of green tea you find in supermarkets. So we sell this mainly because when I had fibroids, I searched for it everywhere and I couldn't find it because I knew this is the one thing that would shrink the fibroids. So if you have fibroids, you need to start taking matcha green tea. And so basically this matcha is meant to, what it's meant to do is to shrink tumors. So any kind of tumors or cysts, even if you have cysts, maybe you have PCOS, this is also very important. So there's a spoon here, I'm going to show you what that looks like so that you can see. It is a powder, but it is in its purest form. So it looks like this, right? So what we do is we actually brew a tea, and then with this matcha green tea, it's just kidiko kidogo, the small one. You just put water in a boil, unazima, and then now you add the matcha in there and cover, because you never boil it directly. You don't want to lose the benefits of the tea. But it is really good for your womb health, basically. If your period is giving you issues, if fibroids are giving you issues, this is the first thing that started helping the women on my platform to shrink their fibroids naturally. It's the matcha green tea. So what you're seeing here is a blend of our teas, right? So we've put matcha green tea in there, and then there's another type of tea known as Ceylon cinnamon. So this is not the normal cinnamon that you cook with. it's a completely different one, and I have it here. So it's, you can see it looks like a roll, yeah, like it's rolled like this. So this type of cinnamon is important because anyone who has fibroids has high blood sugar levels. You find that nobody's going to tell you that your fibroids are linked to your blood sugar, but you do have high blood sugar levels. So this is nature's insulin. This is what's going to give you regular blood sugar levels and you shrink your fibroids. Okay, now I'll go to the next one, which is also a really powerful
that is
one.
it's this one.
This is this one. Yes, the Ceylon cinnamon. Now the next one is known as turmeric tea, but it's a specific kind of turmeric, not the one you cook with. It's known as lacadon turmeric. So this is a powerful anti-inflammatory. So if you have fibroids, usually you have very high levels of inflammation. Your body is very inflamed. That's why you see you can be swollen. People think you're pregnant.
Yeah.
That's part of the inflammation. And so that's also why you see you struggle with your fertility as well. It's inflammation of the uterus. So the lacadon tea looks like this.
This is turmeric.
Yes. And then if you want, you can do this as a tea like what we've put in here.
Or
You can cook with it. It's still okay. And it's also very, very beneficial for regulating your period. Let's say you haven't been getting your period regularly or you've been missing your period. Usually that's a sign that your uterus is inflamed. And also if you have something called fallopian tube blockage, for women who struggle with fertility, usually that's caused by inflammation, so you can start taking that. It's very, very good. And then now we move on to the seeds. This is known as the pumpkin seed. They're still in their raw form. If you want, you can roast them, but I prefer to have them as they are. And so pumpkin seeds are really, really good for your fertility as well, and also for fibroids. They're really, really important because they contain the phytonutrients that can help you in healing. So this is what they look like actually, the pumpkin seeds. And so how to use them? Maybe if you want, you can actually, maybe let's say you've made some oats in the morning. You can actually sprinkle some of the pumpkin seeds in there and you can have them with your oats. Or even in a smoothie. Let's say you've made one cucumber, one mango, you've put in a blender. You can add the pumpkin seeds in there, blend and drink. This is one of the best for fibroids, for shrinking fibroids. Yeah, so aside from the pumpkin seeds, there are also sesame seeds, very powerful for shrinking fibroids. So sesame seeds, you can actually take them raw as they are, or you can roast them. But I usually prefer to take them as they are, and I want to show you how they look. Let me just put this here so I can show you. So sesame seeds look like this. And so what you would do basically is you would actually put this, maybe let's say in a smoothie. You can blend this in a smoothie, you can blend this in a juice. You can add them to your oats, to your uji, and all that. And also you can do this as a family. It actually doesn't mean just because you have fibroids, you're the only one who can do this.
Anyone can.
Anyone can, of course. And this is one of the best ways. And another good thing about sesame is that it actually contains more protein than your regular protein. So if you're trying to actually improve your protein, but you don't want too much inflammation and from eating too much of the red meat and you're not sure where your meat is sourced from, you can do more of the sesame seeds. It's very important.
Can you cook with it as well?
Yeah, you can cook with it. Let's say you've made spinach, terere, something. You know, put a spoonful of this and sprinkle, and then you can eat that. Or you've stir-fried some broccoli and cabbage. You can take some sesame seeds. You can also take pumpkin and put there. And when you eat, you'll actually discover it's really, really good. I like it a lot. It's also one of the ways to have them. Now, another very powerful one is known as flax seeds. This I have to show you because it's the flax seeds that will help to clear the fibroids. So the flax seeds look like this. So flax seeds are very important for, I can say for every woman, because they clean your womb. Even after your period, you need to do that. So if you get into a habit of having flaxseed, you can either have flax seeds in your smoothie, you can either have flax seeds in your uji, you can have it as you've cooked, maybe you've made vegetables, you can do a spoon and sprinkle on top, but just making sure that at every meal you can have a spoonful of each of the seeds.
So perhaps three times or two
a day.
Lunch and dinner.
Yes, you will do that. And sometimes for me I would do 3 times because maybe in the morning I've had a smoothie, I've blended, with the seeds, and then at lunchtime when I'm making my veggies, I sprinkle the seeds and all that. So that actually helps you because sometimes as a human being you forget, but it increases at least the rate at which you're going to be able to eat them. right? And that's important. And then last but not least, we have dates. So dates are important because they are a superfood also for your iron levels. Because as you mentioned, Vivian, when you have fibroids, you actually really do lose a lot of blood. And so your iron levels are much, much lower, and that's dangerous. And so for us women, we need to start like replenishing our iron. And so because of that, let me see if I can be able to do this well. So this is the date. It looks like this.
Most people know about the dates.
Yes.
And especially it helps during pregnancy.
Yes, even for when you're about to deliver. Because it is the fruit that it is a dried fruit, but it's packed with a lot of nutrients, packed with a lot in just a small amount. So for someone who maybe, let's say they have high blood sugar and they're worried, you can consult, of course, with your doctor first before you start taking. But if you take one date in your, maybe let's say you're having this much of green tea, you can take it with a date and have it, and it's also really good for your uterus. I have to mention also on our platform, we've had very many success stories, women who have been able to shrink fibroids. And for me, it touches me because at the time when I had fibroids, I needed a platform like mine. I needed that because I was like, what am I going to do? And it was heartbreaking because everywhere you go, everyone just keeps telling you like, oh, we just have to remove your womb. We just have to.
How was your treatment process like?
My treatment process was a myomectomy. They advised me to have, throughout the years, they kept on telling me they want to remove the uterus. But I said no. Just like Vivian, I said no. And I felt like there's going to be a solution because this is not something I caused on myself. So I know God is going to give me a solution. And so after going everywhere, I found a good doctor. And he just told me I'm going to be able to do the surgery and I'm going to remove the fibroids, and then I'll make sure that everything stays intact. And I'm grateful because what he did was he came with another extra surgeon. Actually, and just the same amount I paid him, he brought another doctor. So it's like I paid for two at the price of one. And he wanted to do it because he knew my fibroids were too many. The doctors just, all the other ones just felt like it was really impossible. So he took on the challenge because he felt like, I can do this and I feel like I'm going to help you, but I'm going to need extra, hands and to make sure that you're okay. And I'm grateful for that. But I always advocate, if as a woman you can be able to avoid, please do. If you can avoid just getting to that point where you need surgery, please do, because sometimes the aftercare is also really hard at home. It's very hard. And you would have to be very strict for you to actually be okay. And you don't want to develop, of course, any kind of issues.
For this pack, how many do I need for me to start seeing perhaps it's working?
Okay. So for our clients, let's say for instance someone starts doing this, usually within the first 2 weeks, they're going to tell you something positive. I'm sleeping better. I'm not bloated. I get my period is regular. And things like that. So the changes come within the first 2 weeks. And those are the changes that will tell you, they actually affect your menstrual cycle. So you start seeing it's not too heavy. You'll see that it came at the right time. You'll also see that it's not painful and things like that. And then now, within the month, when you now start, when you continue on, because you'll use small portions as you go. Now when you continue on, you'll start seeing now even more changes. So I would advise that, let's say for instance, before you start, you've had an ultrasound. You already know the size of your fibroids and all that. Now what you do, just start this as you take care of yourself. Of course, stress levels won't take care of yourself, but start this natural treatment. Then within the 1 month, make sure that you try and check, like be observant on your cycle. Be observant on how you feel when your cycle comes. And usually I tell people it is a guarantee. For me, I know it is a guarantee. You will tell me my period is different. I feel different. And it's because you've used, this method is not easy because everybody's not going to be able to control their diet.
For you, did you use any particular diet, especially during the treatment?
Actually, it was after I started being very anemic is when I started taking things like beetroot and the dates. Actually got flax seeds, but that was like later on when the symptoms were all over. That's when I started taking them. But it felt like the at the time it just felt like it was last minute in a sense, because my blood levels were already low, way too low. It would have taken me a while to push the blood levels from 4 to the normal 12 just by, taking beetroot. It wasn't adding up. But then after I know someone, like she's saying, I know someone who has taken this path, and it has really, really helped.
This type of diet?
Yes, this type of diet. She's very intentional about it. Very intentional making the smoothies, because I kept hearing her talking about making smoothies and the veggies, and I kept having her image in my head.
Do you still do it now? For you?
Right now, I don't do it, but after having a conversation with her, I'm thinking,
You're so bad to do it.
I have to do it because, honestly speaking, also, the African options of meals are not quite...
Of course.
They
really give you carbohydrates.
Exactly. If it's not chapati or potatoes or rice, that's it. So this, for me, feels like I'm expanding the options for me. And I look forward to feeding my kids on this.
Of course.
Looks
want them to be well.
Yeah.
I can see well that you got a hoho,
all of that, all these peppers and all that, everything is very healthy.
Apple. So all this.
Yes, we are supposed to actually take them in our every meal. I love the fact that every time anyone asks me about health, diet and nutrition, they get shocked when I tell them you need to eat more fiber, more vegetables, because every time when I speak about it, they're like, no, but then I need to eat carbohydrates so that I can be full. But I'm like, yes, but still, so to gym, let's not act like we need all that. It is not true. But what you need to do is to eat more fiber. And fiber is your fruit and vegetables. So that means all these broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, all these, you actually need half of your plate. So if this was my plate, what I would have to do is, I'm serving my food. Let's say I have made, sweet potatoes, I have made some fish, and then I also have some greens, some manago. Half of this plate would be my manago. Okay, and then now the other, I portion out. The size of my palm would have to be the protein, and then the size of your fist would have to be now the carbohydrates. Yes, but of course we know as Africans.
Green tea. Yes. But thank you so much, ladies, for coming through. Thank you for sharing your experiences as well. Eat that tajaribu.
Yes.
Let them know where they can find you, Fatma.
Yes. So on Instagram at well_KE, on Twitter at KE Wellness, on YouTube Wellness KE, you'll find all the recipes. Actually, we put them there, and also on Facebook Wellness KE, and we have a 30-day fibroids plan that's helping so many women avoid surgery and avoid all the stressful issues that come with fibroids. So come to us, and even if you want to just ask a question, please do. I'm always ready. DM, send me a message. I'm gonna help you in any way. And then prayer, making sure that you make it intentional. Pray to God. He will guide you to the right information and also give you the discipline, because sometimes as human beings, we're human. Sometimes you might struggle, but then I promise you, when you start, you'll be happy you did. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Vivian.
Yes, I also feel like a support system is very important in that time. Like she's mentioned all these things, I think one of the things that would help someone through this journey is a support system. Trust when someone tells you they're not feeling okay. Trust when someone they're telling you their stomach feels funny. Trust them when they say these things. Trust them when they tell you they're tired. Trust them when they tell you they're in pain. Like she said, strong black women.
Yes, you don't have to suffer for us to be called women.
And so when someone tells you I'm having bad periods and I'm not able to do something, please understand them, because they could be going through something deeper than it actually is.
Where can they find you in case someone is watching? She's been in your case as well.
All right. Find me at Vivian Bwana on Instagram. Find me on Facebook, Vivian Yvette Kadeni Bwana.
Wow. You're Kadeni, just like my sister. Imagine, but they really have inspiring stories, and thank you for tuning in from the start till the end. It has been health and wellness. In case you have any questions, 22151 is our SMS line, at KTN Home _ on Twitter and Instagram, Pale Facebook KTN Home, and at Ali_Zaitun. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, same place, same time, Sunday 6:30 p.m. See ya.